Cool, right, well here we are again. We've been working a lot on this Cortina this week. You've seen it probably in the last couple of episodes. It's going to Simpson Race Exhausts tomorrow to have the exhaust manifold and system built, which he'll do over the course of the week. Simpson, like Bremax, who have been doing the wiring loom, is one of a few kind of trusted people we entrust with some of the jobs. And actually the exhaust manifold and system build is the only time the car will have left our workshop during the entire build. So yeah, we've really been getting everything in place to allow that manifold and system to be made. So obviously the engine and gearbox, axle, etc., which was in last week. And then fitting other things which we've been working on over the course of the last few weeks. So getting the radiator in there, the dry sump tank and the breather tank, which I think Nat was just fabricating last week. We've done the mounts for the strut brace, so we can just put we haven't quite had a chance to make the bar itself, but obviously with the brackets in place you can work out where the bars are going to go so that the sort of upward loop of the manifold doesn't come too close to that. I've got a bit of heat reflective foil on the inner wing there, which I've done that now because it'll be quite a tight gap to get it into once the manifold's made. Oil coolers in there, oil plumbing's in, we've got the fuel lines and brake lines run. We've got the glass in as well. That was a big sort of step forward. We've got all the windows in because although it's going to be taken there in a covered trailer, the weather at the moment's a bit on and off, and there's every chance of a massive cloud burst as it's being taken to the trailer. So we wanted to get those in. We've pretty much finished the whole door builds actually. Handles are in, all the mechanisms are in, the lifters are in for the windows. So yeah, we're kind of really getting there nicely with this now. The loom that Bremax were just measuring up for, I think it was 2 weeks ago, literally arrived today. So as soon as this comes back from Simpson, we'll get the wiring loom installed, and we'll really be getting there then. With the exhaust system in, the wiring loom in, it's largely just interior stuff then, and we've done a lot of the work on the interior, so progressing well. Moving over here, the Mercedes. I think last time Nat just touched on we'd got the chrome back, the bumper was on, but we hadn't got the grille on, so the grille's now been rebuilt. The sort of main actual mesh part of that is aluminium, which we've had chemically stripped and re-anodised. The surround we've had re-chromed, the badge components chromed. The light bezels have been chromed, so we've now managed to get all the light assemblies in. So it's really coming together. The only sort of exterior chrome left now, I think, is this huge sill trim, which goes all the way from the front arch to the rear arch. Solid brass, just unbelievable sort of heavy piece. I'm just waiting on that till we've got the seats in, so I'm not lifting the seats over delicate parts. Most of the work over the last sort of week or two on this has been interior based. Now on this, this is actually the second in a sort of series of 2 Mercedes builds we've done for the same customer. On this one, the interior is so sort of beautiful as standard. We've left a lot more standard than we did on the first one, which was a W108. This is a W111. So the dash wood is all completely standard, and basically the structure of the dash and the structure of all the door cards is more or less as it was. We've re-upholstered everything, we've re-chromed all the chrome work, we've done our own sort of details here and there, so the quarter light knobs we machined our own to be a bit more in keeping and chromed them. We've then done this centre console, which is kind of got a cordless phone charger in it, obviously the shifter there, the bezel for the shifter we machined and had chrome. The phone charger sort of housing is machined chrome piece. The back part of the console is a 3D printed piece that's obviously all then been trimmed in leather. And then on the dash, the instruments are built by Classic Instruments. In the centre there, which is normally the auxiliary gauges, we've made that chrome bezel to fit the air suspension display / controller unit. The little gear display under that, that's non-standard. That's like an electronic gear indicator for the transmission. And then we've used a reasonably classic looking sat-nav head unit where the original would have been. And then above it, the original has a slider controls for the heating system. Now we're running an aftermarket air conditioning system, and we've basically machined again our own control panel, which houses the knobs for that system. But yeah, it's the fundamental design of it all is as per the original. One cool feature which I will show you, we've got PDU based electronics on this, similar to what we've done on the Cortina as well. And it does allow some cool features. So something we've done on this, which we did on the previous one as well, is we've repurposed the window cranks to be basically switches for the electric windows. One of the limitations of that was that you could only control your own window, but with the PDU programming, you can program in some quite cool features. So if I, instead of just clicking this crank down, I'll send this window down. If I click it up, it sends it up. If I do a quick flick the opposite way first, so if I do this up and then down, it's actually lowering the opposite window, and vice versa. If I click down and up, it'll raise that window. So it's quite a nice way of sort of throwing in some extra clever features. And we can also do, for instance, I programmed it on this one, so if I hold this crank up for 2 seconds, it drops all 4 windows if they're all up to start with. So that's a little look at that. We'll have a wander through and look at some of the metalwork now. We actually come up with a song that I repeat, sort of a little ditty as we walk through. Maybe a dance to go with it. Right, it's quite quiet today because it is the end of the day. Morris Minor, not massive progress on that, but we've been working some more on the bulkhead. We've done the side sections of the bulkhead and finalised that central section, and there's a little bit more metal work gone on the back, but we'll update more on that one next week. 68 Camaro. Now this one's just into the metalwork shop. Now we've completed the Mark II Jag metalwork. We did a lot of metalwork on this a while ago, and we kind of got towards the later stages. But around the time this coronavirus thing kicked off, the guy we're doing it for asked for a bit of a break because he was a bit uncertain about his employment. But we're back on with it now. I'll go into a bit more detail on this one another time, but it's a pretty cool build. I mean, it's always a bit nerve-wracking doing a muscle car like this, especially with an American audience, because I know full well that the standard of build on this kind of car in the States is absolutely sky high. So it's a tall order to do something that not only is that kind of standard, but also is different enough to kind of set it apart from the crowd. So hoping we do that with that one. The Mustang, loads of progress on this. If you saw it last time, it was just a scary looking cutout back end. We've now got the rear chassis legs in, the rear boot floor in, the arch tubs are in, the rear bulkhead's in. We've finished these inner structural pieces here, and the outer repair panel for that pillar's done as well. Stu's just got all of the sort of outer bodywork on it clackoed in place at the minute, just while he's sort of finalising the positions. The rear panel is attached to the boot floor, and he's basically moving on to getting the quarters on. He's just at the point where he's aligning everything on that at the moment. I'll answer a bit of a question that a lot of people have been saying on this, why not just get a better one? Now, there's a few things here. The first point is, if you looked at the pictures of this car when the customer bought it, he bought it from the States as an on-the-road driving and pretty tidy looking in photos car. Now, he asked me to go and view it at his house, and I could see it was a bit of a horror story. You know, you could see it had the accident damage underneath. There was a lot of signs of sort of rough work over rust. So we had an inkling it wasn't going to be great. But he definitely wants a coupe, and that's where the questions about, oh, wouldn't it be better just to get a new shell? Well, to my knowledge, they don't do a new shell. They do a fastback and they do a convertible. And frankly, even if they did, there is always the risk of the amount of finessing work needed. I mean, bearing in mind those shells are, what, $17,000. So by the time we've bought one, got it over here, paid the duty, etc., it probably owes us 20 grand. Then by the time we've done all the finessing work to get the quality of fit of everything up to an acceptable standard, you probably spent another maybe 3 or 4, maybe even 5, and 25 grand pays for a lot of metalwork. The alternative would be, a few people have said, well, why don't you just get a better car? But again, you've got to remember, what have you got to pay for a relatively solid Mustang? You're going to be spending at least 20 grand again. Got to get it over here, and then we've got to pay the labour to strip it down so it's just a shell again, blast it, and if we then find that it's no good, that's a disaster, but even if it was good at that point, you've spent more than we've spent on the labour on this, so it might seem like ridiculous to sort of carry on with a car that seems so rough, but in reality the costs versus getting a better one are probably no different really, and there's less risk. It's a known entity, we know it's rough, so you know where you stand, rather than getting another car which might be rough and you don't think it is. That's that. One last thing, the Mark II Jag. We've been doing the sort of initial filler work basically on that. So skimming it all with filler, block sanding everything. He's got the panels on the other side at the minute. So we'd get all the doors fitted up and block sand across everything, basically across the shutters, so that all the reflections when you look down the side of the car when it's done look perfect across all the panels. So that's basically the stage we're on with at the minute, and that'll carry on probably for another week until we get the first kind of coat of polyester over the whole lot. What I will quickly mention, actually, if we just spin round this way, a few people have been spotting this Interceptor in the background and wondering what that was about. So we've just had this in basically to do a little bit of tinkering on it for a customer, just to allow him to use it and basically recommissioning. However, it is coming back to us probably in a couple of years' time to do a full build on it. Now, I won't go completely into the full details on that. It's obviously going to retain the crucial elements that make it look like an Interceptor, but we're going to put a few ideas of the customers and ours into it as well, one of which will probably be a Hellcat V8. So, I mean, it seems logical on one of these. They originally had a Mopar V8 in them anyway, so putting a modern Mopar V8 in seems like the logical route. So that will be an exciting project, but I think the next time we do one of these videos, it will have gone back to the owner to enjoy as a standard car for the moment. And that's it for this week. We'll catch you probably again next week. Bye.
What? How's this leaking wax all into my ear? Yeah. No.